Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to talk with our March 16th Inner Circle speaker today. I have Caroline Lee with me. Her pronouns are she and her. And Caroline, what sort of background do you have?
So I took sort of a curvy journey to get to sex therapy. Started out in undergrad doing piano performance and ultimately ended up in religious studies. And then took a few years to stay at home with a kiddo. And I also hold a master's in library science, which I usually tell people is like the ultimate nerd researcher degree, which is, part of what I love about doing therapy and specifically sex therapy is just diving into the research and particularly the research that's held in anecdotal evidence and case studies.
Awesome. And so, what interests do you have in the sexuality field? What kind of brought you into sex therapy?
Mhm. I grew up in South Louisiana, and so very conservative ideals around sex and sexuality, basically meaning we don't talk about it ever. Um, but as I grew older and as I did some healing work around my own sexual traumas from childhood and just started to explore my own sexuality, which included selling sex toys through a multi-level marketing company, I just found myself constantly being the person that everyone came to when they needed help or advice around sex. And the more that I talked to people about it, the more confused I got about like, why are there so many questions? Why are people having so many issues? Why isn't there space to really talk about this? And it wasn't until roughly about 10 years ago that I realized sex therapy was actually a field I could go into. And since I'd always wanted to be a couples therapist, I thought, oh, well, this is fucking perfect. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Hell yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. So, in an ideal world, what's one thing the majority of the population is on board with?
I think in an ideal world, that would actually be comprehensive and inclusive sex education is universal.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so for your talk today, or your talk on March 16th, what is one objective you hope the audience will take away from your presentation?
I'm hoping that the presentation will really illuminate the the complexity of the shame that female identifying individuals can really deal with, can develop through religious trauma, which doesn't necessarily have to be sex specific, but can be gender specific. And that layering of religion on top of it creates such an existential crisis and many times also an identity crisis for females. And so I'm just hoping to really explain that in a way that feels much more comprehensive, perhaps, than I think a lot of people understand, because those crises, existential, the identity, the sex, the gender of it all, traps up female sexual pleasure so much. So I'm hoping that clinicians who are, able to join us for this presentation will understand, the level of complexity of unlocking that sexual pleasure for their clients.
Absolutely. Caroline, thank you so much. I really appreciated getting to hear more about your talk and about you in general. And I'm so looking forward to hearing you speak more on this intersexuality or intersectionality. Oh my God, here's me not being able to speak again on March 16th. We'll leave it at that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, catch us March 16th at 2:30 Central Time to hear from the lovely Caroline. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.